Let's talk about crypto. You know what if every single transaction you made was posted on a public billboard for anyone to see? Well, for most crypto users, that's pretty much the reality. Today, we're diving into the very controversial tool designed to fix that, the crypto mixer. So, are they a vital shield for our privacy, or are they just a perfect weapon for criminals?
So let's just start with a fundamental question. You've got a crypto address, right? It's just a bunch of random characters, so that means it's totally anonymous, doesn't it? Well, for most of the big blockchains, like Bitcoin, the answer is, surprisingly, not really.
To really get this, think about it like this. Imagine your entire bank statement, every single deposit, every purchase, every payment you've ever made, plastered on a digital billboard for the whole world to see and analyze. That, in a nutshell, is how transparent many of the most popular cryptocurrencies actually are.
And the reason for this is something called a public blockchain. It's basically an open ledger. And that transparency, it's a feature, not a bug. It's what allows for trust without needing a bank in the middle. But the trade-off is a pretty serious lack of financial privacy, and that creates a very specific problem.
So, how do you go about solving that problem? Well, that's where today's topic comes into play. The tool designed to bring privacy back into this super transparent system is the crypto mixer, which you might also hear it called a tumbler.
So here's how a mixer works. It basically takes your coins and throws them into this big digital pot with coins from a whole bunch of other users. It shuffles them all together and then sends your original amount to a brand new address you control. The whole point is to break that traceable link on the public blockchain.
Okay, but how does that shuffling actually happen? I mean, what's really going on inside the machine? Let's take a look under the hood, because as you'll see, not all mixers are built the same. You've really got two main flavors of mixers, centralized and decentralized. And the biggest difference between them, it really boils down to one simple question. Who do you have to trust?
All right, first up is the centralized model. It's a pretty straightforward process, actually. You send your crypto to an address that's controlled by some third-party service. They take your coins, they mix them in their own private pool with funds from other users, often adding some random time delays, and then they send the same amount to a new, clean address that you gave them. But, and this is a huge but, there's a massive catch. You have to completely, 100% trust that operator. You have to trust them not to just run off with your money, which, by the way, has happened. Trust them not to keep detailed logs that link your old address to your new one, and trust them not to cooperate with law enforcement, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of using the service in the first place. So how do you get rid of that risky middleman? Well, that's exactly where decentralized mixers come in, and they use a clever method called coin join. Instead of sending your coins to a third party, a whole group of users gets together and they collaboratively build one single big transaction that has a ton of inputs and a ton of outputs.
And what's really cool is how this tech has become so much more user-friendly. You don't have to be some kind of coding wizard to do this anymore. Privacy-focused wallets like Wasabi Wallet and Samurai Wallet have actually built automated coin join features right into their software, making it way more accessible for the average person.
Now, all of this might sound fantastic, but it is absolutely crucial to understand that using a mixer is not a foolproof plan. It is not some magic invisibility cloak that guarantees you perfect anonymity. There are very, very real risks involved here.
So that leads us back to the question, is it a perfect invisibility cloak? The answer to that is a hard no. Even after you pull off a successful mix, your privacy can still be compromised in a few key ways.
Yeah, your privacy isn't guaranteed because of four main dangers. First, you have firms using what's called chain analysis, and they can use some pretty sophisticated statistical models to try and de-anonymize you. With centralized services, there is always the risk the operator just takes the money and runs. The mixer's code itself could have bugs or vulnerabilities. And honestly, the biggest risk is often you. Making one simple mistake after the mix, like sending coins to a verified exchange account, can undo all that hard work.
And this really gets us to the core tension of this technology. Mixers are a classic example of what's called a dual-use tool. They can be used for perfectly legitimate reasons and for clearly illicit ones. On one side, the legitimate uses are pretty clear. Maybe an individual who just wants to protect their spending habits, or a business that needs to obscure its financial strategy from competitors. But the illicit side, well, it's just as significant. These are the exact same tools that are used to launder stolen funds from exchange hacks or to hide the profits from ransomware attacks. This chart here gives us a rough idea of the landscape, and while yeah, a big chunk is used for personal privacy or business operations, you just can't deny that a substantial amount of activity is linked to laundering the proceeds of crime. And that is exactly why this technology gets so much attention from regulators.
Okay, so with all that in mind, what should someone know if they're considering using a mixer for, totally legitimate privacy reasons? Here's a quick checklist of the practical things you need to think about. First and foremost, this isn't a free service. You can expect to pay a fee, usually somewhere in the range of 1 to 3% of whatever amount you're mixing. This fee is what pays the service provider or the other people participating in a decentralized mix.
And beyond the fee, you've got other things to think about, like the practical hurdles of just waiting for enough users to join a mix. You also have to weigh the risks. Is the operator of a centralized service reputable? Are you actually prepared to manage your coins carefully after the mix to keep your privacy? And finally, you have to navigate this really complex and always shifting legal landscape, where some of these services are actively being sanctioned by governments.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. We've looked at how they work, the risks, the reasons people use them. So let's boil all of this down to the final takeaway. This quote from our source material really says it all. The goal of a mixer isn't really to provide perfect, unbreakable anonymity. The real goal is to make tracing transactions so difficult and so expensive that, for most people trying to follow the money, it's just not worth the effort. So when you boil it all down, crypto mixers are a powerful tool for reclaiming your financial privacy in this increasingly transparent digital world. But they are an imperfect tool, one that comes with some serious technical, financial, and legal risks.
And all of that leaves us with a final, really difficult question. In a world of public ledgers, where does our legitimate right to financial privacy end? And where does illicit secrecy begin? That's the line that users, developers, and regulators are all struggling to draw right now. And it's a question that goes way beyond just the technology.